Amanda, brilliant to catch up with you. It's such a bizarre world we're living in that this is how we have to conduct interviews now. But the great thing is that on Anzac Day, we'll be racing at Flemington.
I know, Richo. And we've been doing that since 1961, when the government allowed the Victoria Racing Club to have the races at Flemington on that day. But they weren't allowed to start until after 1 o'clock, of course, because no one needed to interfere in the all-important Anzac Day March that, of course, brought everyone together. So, we're racing, in these weird times that we're living in, and they sure are weird, aren't they?
They certainly are. And for all the VRC members, they'll be able to download their race book digitally. They'll be able to consume the races, whether on television or digitally as well. I mean, this is what we've got to do to make sure our great sport gets to the racing fans and the members.
Absolutely. And particularly on such an important day as Anzac Day. That's a national day. That is a day that defines so much of what the Australian brand identity and the lovely, the stoicism and the mateship and all of the humour in adversity and all that sort of thing. So it's such a privilege to have the race meeting on Anzac Day, and we will move heaven and earth to make sure that, and I'm sure you will as well, on Saturday, as many people can be part of that Anzac Day as possible.
And we're going to reminisce about some individuals in particular that will be honoured. But first, let's talk about the horse, the unbelievable contribution the horse made to our Australian war efforts.
135,000 horses went to war in the First World War, and one came back. Horses have always played such an important part in everybody's lives, not just racing. Racing is a wonderful sport and a glorious sport that we love. But when you think about the role that horses have played throughout history, you cannot underestimate their importance.
Yeah, and when we look at fabulous Flemington on Saturday, we'll keep in mind that during World War I and World War II, it was used as a training ground for the troops.
Yes, it was. And it was interesting that during both those wars, Flemington, was important, as you know, for the Melbourne Cup and Cup Week to continue because it was deemed good for morale. And the committee of the day made a very important decision during both wars, and that was to divert all of the profits and any money that they could spare to the war effort. And they did. And in the First World War, that was £102,000, wow, which in today's money is many, many millions of dollars, which was an amazing. And I actually have got the original page, handwritten page out of the minute book of 1914, which shows the decision that was unanimously taken by the committee of the day to do everything they could to support the patriotic war effort. And they gave more. That £102,000 was a bigger donation than any other sporting organisation in Australia.
And we're paying tribute to some very significant people, including in race 7. We're honouring Wing Commander Ian Bales, your dear old dad. Tell us about his incredible story and his contribution and his service as an unbelievable pilot.
Well, thank you, Richo. It started. Lloyd Williams, quite unbeknownst to me, wrote to the VRC and to me as chairman, because he felt it was important that the contribution that Ian Bales had made to the VRC as well as to the war should be recognised on Anzac Day. I was so touched by it. He didn't ring me to warn me or anything like that. The letter just came in.
It's such a beautiful story, isn't it? And like your parents were like many young couples in love in that part of time. They spent 3 years apart while he was off serving his country, serving the UK and serving us in Australia.
I know, it was amazing. He was actually at Oxford University at the time, heard the call, went into the RAF, was taught how to fly a Spitfire at the age of 19. And, before he knew it, was married at the age of 20, and into the Battle of Britain, and the rest is history, as they say. He was decorated with a wonderful award called the Distinguished Flying Cross and in the citation it says for exceptional bravery and devotion to duty at all times. So we're the family is very proud of his war record and the story of my parents during that time, because my mother worked at MI5, which was the sort of spy organization. And they had met the year before and clearly fell very much in love. And when after the Battle of Britain and various other campaigns that he was in Europe, he was posted to India and Burma for 3 years until the end of the war to fight the Japanese. So my mother didn't see him for 3 years. And when the war ended in the Pacific, which, as we know, is 75 years this year, and the European War finished in May, the Pacific War finished in August, she was notified that the troops were that all of the military were coming home. And for a week, she met every single train at Waterloo Station because she had no idea which train he was on.
Wow.
And on I think it was the third day of meeting every single train at Waterloo Station, she had felt this little tap on her shoulder and she turned around. It was my father. And she hadn't seen him for 3 years.
Remarkable story.
I know.
And
I know.
The picture in the race book to the digital race book is superb. He was a bit of a hunk, wasn't he, your dad?
He was a very good-looking man. Very good-looking man.
And also, the VRC pay homage yet again to Peter Armitage.
Yeah. And my father was vice chairman too. Peter was chairman when Dad was vice chairman.
Right.
So they were a great duo. They were great mates, and had been for a long time.
I looked through his story and apologies for looking down to read these notes, but I thought they were fascinating that his squadron crew took part in 10 bombing raids over Germany. And on the night of March 24 in 1944, some people would know, the last of the 1,000 bomber raids, his Lancaster was shot down over Nazi Germany.
Yes.
The crew parachuted safely. He ran 29 kilometres, swam in a freezing river, and evaded searchlights before hiding in a haystack across the Dutch border. He was eventually rescued by the Dutch resistance, passed along through an underground network, and eventually someone did the dirty on him, and he ended up getting caught by the Gestapo and put in the prisoner of war camp, where he walked in and he said on the top of his voice, "Is there any other bastard here from Melbourne?" It was the first sentence he said. And can you believe it? To his amazement, a man who became Sir, Rupert Steele, was the one that yelled out, yes I'm from Melbourne. Amazing.
Who was also chairman of the VRC.
Incredible.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. As indeed is the story of Bill Newton and, all of these wonderful men who had a lot to do with our organisation, with our sport, but who we also owe so much to.
I'm always looking for a silver lining, and the silver lining might be in this coronavirus that on St Leger Day, we get to see a Melbourne Cup champion, and that is very rare with Vow and Declare running. How
rare is that? I mean, what an absolutely stellar lineup it is anyway. The fields are huge. We've got I think it's about 30 more acceptances than we had last year. But to have Vow and Declare running on Saturday is just fantastic. And those two races, the Ledger and the St Leger and the Newton, into the Ramsden, into the Cup. We are going to have the last post through our wonderful PA system, but it won't be in person by a lone bugler, sadly. But we'll have Matt Hill's part of the thing. I know you're going to be there. It'll be the best that we can do in an electronic sense. We'll do our best to keep everybody, the gravitas of this day, the celebration of this day, and the commemoration of this all-important day.
And most importantly, we'll be paying tribute to your dad, and your family won't get an opportunity to be there, but you will for years to come on this very
Thank you,
special day.
Richo. Yes,
Amanda,
it is. Thank you.
good luck with a great day, and congratulations on the wonderful honour to your father.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And may I also wish all the families and all the racing participants and everybody involved in this important day all the very best.